a weapon, a bringer of death. And now, you're nothing. I will keep on killing you. Again and again.
Are you sure about that?
Now, this is a game that I've been meaning to talk about. Furi's one of the best action games of the last decade, but because it's a top-down indie game, a lot of people slept on it. Even with the Matthew Matosis and Joseph Anderson videos that have a good number of views, this game still isn't given its flowers by more mainstream audiences. It's their loss really because this game is badass. It's practically top 10 anime shonen fights the game. We're talking about straight challenging boss fights over some of the most banging synthwave music in gaming. Seriously, the soundtrack of this game goes so fucking hard to where I actually listen to some of these songs on their own. For those that don't know though, Furi's the 2016 action bullet hell game developed by the Game Bakers, a small crew of developers out of France that are mostly known for this game and more recently a game that makes you hate being single. If you ask me, this is their best work so far, and they probably know that too since they're surprisingly releasing DLC for this game 6 years later. But what's the premise? Why is this neon afro samurai looking motherfucker chopping down all these people? Well,
the jailer is the key. Kill him and you'll be free.
And that's it. Okay, there is more to the plot of this game than that, but this is one of those plots that slowly unravels itself the deeper you go. All you need to know is that this guy is known as the Stranger, and you need to escape this elaborate prison by defeating each floor's guardian. You're initially set free by this rabbit cosplay man named The Voice that is strangely friendly to your cause for some reason. He accompanies you on your journey, filling in details of the opponents you'll be facing. As you fight your way through, you slowly realize that there was definitely a reason why this guy was locked up, but we'll get to that later. So I really fuck with the look of this game, man. This game is 6 years old already, and it's showing no signs of aging due to the sheen neon-like art style that this game is rocking. The scenery with these walking sections is pretty damn gorgeous, and I think that the devs know it too, considering all these shots that show off every nook and cranny of it. Further proof that the Unity engine could be just as good as any other game engine when the right people are using it. I mentioned earlier that this guy looks like Afro Samurai, and that's not a coincidence considering that the creator of that manga is the art director of this game. Each boss has this cool, slick, minimalist design that immediately tells you what they're about. The top-down view does not provide that up-close, intimate feel that maybe some other action games provide, but you get a clear view of the whole arena, which is necessary considering how much bullshit bosses throw at you. However, the camera isn't completely top-down, it's more at a tilt, which at times can make dodging projectiles a little off since the positioning is a little different than what you see. Animations are really snappy to the point where even when I slow down this footage, it's hard to capture the in-between frames of an attack windup and release. I like it though, it makes a lot of these fights look like an anime fight scene, especially when you and the bosses are dodging each other's attacks and trading blows back and forth. The music in this game though, whoo boy. I said in the beginning of this video that this game has the best synthwave soundtrack in gaming, and I mean it. Only other game soundtrack that comes close is maybe Hotline Miami, but the more I jam out to this game soundtrack, I'm not so sure about that. Other than the songs banging, I like how each track perfectly matches the personality of each boss and how the fight progresses with each of them. Like how with the burst, the song starts out frantic and kind of playful sounding, as the burst is mostly just testing you out, sniping you from afar. As the fight progresses and you start getting the upper hand, the melody becomes a lot more rigid, representing her desperation to win and realizing that she messed with the wrong one.
Next level.
The line mostly has a mellow beat representing how based and zen he is, but the track gets lighter in tone as the fight progresses, kind of matching the player becoming more enlightened, as he's definitely the skill check boss of this game.
You live under the illusion of greed. Abandon the fate. It is written. Seek joy in these last precious moments.
The Scales theme is mechanical and brooding, representing his deformities and hatred towards the stranger. While the song's theme is angelic and comforting, representing her want to take care of you rather than fight you.
How hard could it have been? You ruined it all. Look at you now.
I know this sounds like a weird thing to gush about, but I just like it when a game's music perfectly matches the tone of what's happening on screen, and Furi's one of those games that does it phenomenally. Many of these songs stick to the vision, which is crazy considering that all the music was outsourced to a bunch of different electronic producers of no relation. But anyway, y'all get the point. The music's great, and I'm definitely not the only one that thinks so, considering how so many of these songs have millions of views on YouTube. Wish those millions actually played the damn game, but I digress.
But you and me, we know that being locked up fucks you up inside. We know that so well, don't we? That's why we did what we did. That's why we're getting out. That's why our story doesn't end like hers.
So Furi's a straight boss rush game with no levels, no side missions, and no fodder enemies in between. It's half a twin stick shooter too, which automatically makes it different from every other hack and slash game I've played. If there's another one that incorporates twin stick shooting like this, then I haven't played it. The name of the game is chopping through many of these bosses' health bars, 6 to be precise, 12 technically if you count these close quarter combat sections. The stranger isn't packing many moves to mess around with, as all you can do is slash, shoot, dodge, and parry. It's not a detriment at all though, since bosses specifically challenge you in these 4 categories: big beams and projectiles to dash through, quick swipes that you need to parry, shooting them down when they get too far, and waiting for the right time to unleash your laser katana combo. You have 3 lives yourself, and when you lose one of them, you simply have to go through that boss's phase again. You can kind of think of these boss phases as levels themselves, since each phase they introduce new attacks that you have to figure out how to deal with. My favorite thing about this game is that there's such a nice ebb and flow with these boss fights. Bosses can pretty much do everything you can do, but slightly better. However, you're never at a disadvantage, since many of their moves can be punished with a well-timed parry or charge shot. When you get into these close quarter combat sections after downing a boss, bosses usually have some set patterns of moves that they like to throw out. However, sometimes you don't even have to deal with any of that, as you can get some sweet counters while a boss is mid-combo. It's especially satisfying when a boss is in mid-monologue and you just charge slash the shit out of them. Sometimes bosses like to bait you for a counterattack, but you can immediately counterattack their counterattack, and boy does it feel good. The snappy animations definitely makes dodging and trading hits feel impactful. Man, once you get the timing of these boss attacks down, it starts to feel like you're the boss instead. However, that's only after your first playthrough, or dying a lot in your first playthrough, because man, this game is not easy. There's definitely a lot of trial and error moments with these bosses throwing out crazy screen gobbling attacks that you won't see coming. This is especially the case when bosses are on their last phase. This is when the game really leans into being a bullet hell. Yes, all of these projectiles you see on screen can hurt you. Jesus Christ, add more, why don't you? These bullet hell sections will definitely have your palms sweating if you're not used to them. However, they're nowhere near as bad as actual bullet hell games where there's so much shit happening on screen my mind can't process it. Though it's challenging, it's actually pretty manageable, but I would be lying if I said that these were my thing. Definitely prefer when the game either leans more into the close combat stuff or there's a balance of some bullet hell stuff sprinkled in. One of the reasons why I think that the middle string of bosses from the hand to the burst are the strongest while the star kinda sucks. They take away your katana and stick you in a mech in that fight, and it's just not as satisfying since they're taking away half of the gameplay. Many of the bosses, while having similar looking attacks, still all feel different, and that's due to each of them having certain quirks that separate them from each other. like the hand having a shield that repels all your shots, which means you can't reliably do damage from afar. The Song hovering out of her arena, which means you gotta rely on shooting her down. The Edge being strictly a close quarters duel, which means you gotta parry out the ass. The Beat being the only one with platforming. It helps that this game is really short too. There's only 10 bosses in the base game, with each of them taking about 10 to 15 minutes if you do everything correctly. The rest of that time is filled with these walking sections that lead up to each boss. First playthrough, I actually like these a lot. The voice really sells the backstory of each guardian before you enter the arena, and the way that the music swells as you get closer, oh, it's just pure hype shit.
So what do you say? An eye for an eye, huh? Time to take your revenge. The jailer is the key. Kill him, and you will be free.
However, like all walking sections on repeat playthroughs, they're pretty damn boring. They give an auto walk button so you don't have to keep pressing forward, but they should have just added a skip option altogether. I mentioned that this game is pretty tough, and yeah, while it's not noob friendly, I do think that the difficulty is exaggerated a bit. Not only do you get 3 chances to get through a boss phase, but if your parrying is on point, you're guaranteed to get life back. The parries are really easy to deal with too if you just listen to the sound cue. Seriously, you're guaranteed to parry every time if you just parry after that sound cue. It's so rhythmic that I'm not even looking at the shiny cue when bosses are about to attack me now. I'm just listening to the sound. Now the dash does have a little bit of a delay that can mess you up at times, and that's because it's mapped with the charge dodge. I don't know how they would fix this though, since charge dodging is vital for dodging bigger attacks, especially on Furier. Speaking of Furier difficulty, now I'll give y'all that shit is ridiculous. It's crazy how remixing or adding some moves to a boss can make them that much harder. On regular, I beat the game pretty easily, but on Furier, whew, I have the Beat whooping my ass.
Excellence is not an art, it's pure habit. We are what we repeatedly do.
So Furi is one of those games that purposely withholds information from the player. A lot of the dialogue bosses spat out about you being a ruthless killing machine doesn't really connect until you escape the prison and your very presence drains all the life from around you. It further gets compounded when the stranger goes back to his master and you see that you're one of many, and then you're given the option to mass invade the planet you just came from. Holy shit, this escalated real quick. I don't know how everybody else felt about this plot twist, but it definitely caught me off guard first time playing. It recontextualizes all the dialogue about you being a monster your second time through. It makes so much sense why so many of the bosses either hate or fear you, as you're literally an evil cyborg alien sent to take over their world. Man, this was a pretty damn good plot twist if you ask me. I love how right around when the stranger gets a change of heart is when the player themselves will probably suspect that something is wrong. Some will probably get it earlier with the hand as you slaughter a fucking paladin in front of his son, but for most, that moment will probably be with the Beat. Slaughtering a kid that's running away from you for most of the fight will definitely not fly with most people, and the way that it's portrayed is truly heartbreaking as she can't even damage you. Sort of feels like they should have given an option to spare her here, but that probably would go against the point of it. Something I don't understand though is the voice's plan on changing the stranger. If you think about it, this motherfucker led the stranger to kill all the guardians for the slim chance that he'll turn into a good guy by the time he escaped prison. What type of fucking plan is that? It's revealed that he's the mastermind behind the prison, so this motherfucker literally sacrificed his own people for the very thing that he's trying to stop. I mean, yeah, it ended up working in the end as the stranger actually does end up turning against his own people, but still, what the fuck, voice? I remember my first playthrough way back thinking that he was going to be the final boss, as the way he talks and moves just seems so manipulative. It just seems like the whole game he's leading you into a trap. It also doesn't help that halfway through, he reveals that he's the architect of the prison, so it just didn't make sense to me why he would help him escape. The game makers probably didn't want to be that predictable, making the main narrator of the game the final boss. Honestly, what they came up with here is a lot more philosophically interesting. So yeah, that's Furi. I don't think I got it across in this video enough, but this is one of my favorite games, man. I love how this game looks, the music slaps, and I never get tired of speedrunning these bosses. Maybe one day I'll be good enough to beat this on Furier. You know, a game like this with nothing but bosses lives and dies based on how good those bosses are, and thankfully, Furi has some damn good bosses. This game definitely gets my seal of approval. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about this one. Help this video out in the algorithm by doing the usual stuff, and until next time.